everyone, thanks for joining me on my channel. We're gonna be talking about children and teenagers part 3 on the issues of children and teenagers. But if you miss the link, miss the videos on the two other parts, I'm gonna put down part 1 and part 2 on my description if you miss those. But I wanted to talk about part 3, and I mentioned that it's gonna be my versatile topic, and it's gonna be my best ingredients topic, my biggest topic so far. As I'm gonna raise this, and one thing I'm gonna talk about since I've been waiting for days is youth crime. It's been a lot of talk on the news, articles, videos, social media, and people talking about youth crime and why it's happened, why it shouldn't have happened, and what things you should have avoided, and why is people so angry with kids getting out on bail. And I want to talk about all of this, and I want to raise these concerns in all of this and in the videos and why it shouldn't have happened in the first place. But let's talk about youth crime. There's been people talking about why, and people traumatized and all that from kids breaking in the house, stealing, hijacking, and so on. As I did mention in the previous one in part 2 on why this youth crime happened in Australia, and what changes need to be made to stop it from happening. Sorry about that, but I'm still learning on the videos and all the editing, as I did this afternoon, and it's been difficult over the last few days on the editing, and it is a big thing I wanted to do. It is a kind of thing where I wanted to help people out. But let's get back to youth crime. Youth crime is a big issue in Australia, and it's been the biggest one ever since, where justice systems are strained, parents are overwhelming, citizens in Queensland, New South Wales and Victoria and other parts of the states are overwhelmed. People are overwhelmed that their houses are getting broken and entering and so on. And I wanted to talk about the main key issues and why is it happening, and where did the source comes from, and how did youth crime happen. There 3 years, 1993, 2009 and 2024 and 2025. And the first ones, let's start with 1993. I don't heard much about 1993. 2009 I heard, 2013 I heard about some teams in Victoria called Apex Game as the first big issue it started, and state governments raised the age from 12 to 10 to combat youth crime, which unfortunately didn't do any difference, and police task forces are doing hard to crack down on young teenagers. But I also want to look in the traumatic experiences of kids, on why they're doing it, how to stop it, and how is it not going to happen again. And I want it in 2024 is the biggest youth crime problem since for 2 decades, 2 or 4 decades since it's first started. And it's been the worst, and where it's overwhelming state and federal laws, which I'm going to put as well on what happens, and I'm going to find another article on local, state and federal laws, what they can and what they can't do, and in the military is another topic where the military only gets involved if it's either local and state and federal government, and especially the state federal government is overwhelming and in a massive crisis of overthrown or any abuse within its federal agencies, and that's where the military will come into the mocking thousands of soldiers, and as a mind-bubbling couple thousands it depends, but we're not worse as America, so we don't have worse protesters here, don't smash cars, light up shops, looting. What Americans are what worse than Australians, so we are really lucky. But I still want to talk into the topic on youth crime and why it started, and I do want to look into the key issues why it's starting, where the key issues and all that. So, why did youth crime start, and what's big about the youth crimes? There are two key issues. It might be a big concern on why it happened. One is Charles's traumatic events and experiences and worst state of minds, and two is poor government decisions and department agencies like child protection agencies and justice agencies and all that stuff, and where it's a big problem to child protections and they're there to all that stuff and all that stuff, and where they get involved in resi cares as well. I also see that as a problem. I also been through resi cares since 2012 to 2015, and I've been experiencing one, and I can tell you how what I'm experiencing and why I want them to be shut down. And it's my decision why I want it shut down, the cons and pros of resi cares, or where actual cares are caught, because it's the first name I call them. In Queensland on the cafe I call it resi cares. I don't know why, but it's easy name I guess, but I wanted to talk first of all on resi cares. If people would wanted to know how did resi cares come up with the topic, you have to go back to 1947 of the Curtis Report. It goes state where after World War II it's been coupled off because concentrate camps and other prison facilities where abuse, trauma, all that happens within these concentration camps. Australia is the other ones where I heard of one in between 1930 to 1970 where I watched a video before where disability people don't serve to be in the community, tie them up in or put them in cages in houses where they should not be, and it's really disturbing to some people. I watched a bit of it and it is not as scenery as I think, but I seen the whole information where the government says no, disability people don't deserve to be on chain, don't deserve to be in the community like normal people. Let's put them in cages where it's very disturbing. It shouldn't have happened. But the government's been putting a framework into group homes where young people can stay in if they don't have parents or anything. There's also in 1946 there's been advocate for to take away large scale institutions where it cares, where drawings where they should be suited, and the government's, let's say the sample in an easy way, the government's saying instead of concentration camps or very excessive homes, let's put it in nice homes where they're being treated by a corporate types, or a member of the person who looks after these kids. If they got nowhere to go, if their families die, don't have family members to look after or anything, the government has to find a way somewhere to look after its kids. And all this stuff. And that's where they're starting a framework to put young people in the group homes or resi cares into the 1960s. In 1960s, Victoria is between 1950 and 1960 in the framework where these people will be staff homes and where they also putting people with disabilities as young as 10 into these homes, which are dissatisfactory about. And I'm going to, and it offered, in these old days, there used to be married couples running these homes, not staff homes, and the governments are looking into resi cares due to fundabilities of children. And that's how resi cares came in. There's also one up the coast where resi care was formed by a church, but ends up being a resi care. I know what a resi care looks like. It's run by dots, and some resi cares run by family community services, which I have a con about. I don't know what's going on with me, but I have to take a thingy off this in the next couple of days, but that's how Resi Cares started. But let's forward a bit a couple of decades later on why it's a big problem to me and why this should be shut down. Resi Cares is about, you're talking about in the whole Australia, in Queensland, there's about a couple hundred of them. There was an article last year, there was 1,700, maybe 1,900 kids under the age of 18 and above 0 in Resi Cares. Half of that, which is 850, were disability. So if I add all that up in Australia, I'm looking around 5 to 7,000 people in Resi Cares in Australia, which is alarming. And maybe quarter to half of them have disabilities, which I have a dissatisfactory about. There shouldn't be any disabilities inside Resi Cares at all, no matter what their disabilities are. And that's why I want to get to that topic. But why dissatisfactory about Resi Cares? One is the poor staffing and the poor registrations when dealing with and if people wanted to know what a Resi Care is or what's the complex of a Resi Care, I'll give you a good example. Some are different. Some may have fences around their blocks. Where I stay, there's about 4 houses. One administration for caseworkers, COs, Resi managers, counsellors and other staff, cleaners. You also got a maintenance shed, a staff training room, a gaming area, a bike shed and so on, and a little park, a playground equipment for kids to play on. But it's not a family type home. There's also rules. It's not a family type home where they not family, they don't play Xboxes all day. They got strict rules like going to school. It's like watching the world's strictest parent, where you got really tough rules where you can and what you can't do. You have to do jobs. To earn $30 a week, you have to do living skills. And you don't get things like families give you. Carers don't meant to do that. They just look after kids like they're on a day and night shift. And also, my Resi Care have an alarm in the hallway from 10 p.m. to 6 o'clock in the morning, where you go in the middle of the hallway there. It's like a warning bell where you escape out of prison. And yes, I know what resi cares are like, and that's why I have a big thing about resi cares, and why I've seen people with disabilities being in ones, and I don't mend it very well. I see and I seen through the inside of one. I haven't been in the media about resi cares and why it's a problem, but it's been family members in Queensland. I even seen a video today, and I mentioned that picture. Why this? Why the dad of the daughter accuses the Queensland government of this and that, and they said social services in Queensland said he's not allowed to touch his own kids. They ended up in resi care like they're not allowed to look after their kids, even if there's no abuse of them involved. And the problem with resi cares is they mention about overwhelming the system. That could be possibility, but also it could be kid. I seen kids make good choices and stay away. They got houses too where they don't have anywhere near. I've seen kids do good chapters, but it's been kids who has criminal records and criminal charges ended up in resi cares. And I've seen and encourage people with disabilities and new kids to encouraging these types of crimes. They only live about 5 metres apart from one house. It only takes 5 metres a house to have problems. It's not separated. It's not foolproof. A kid can just walk up someone's window and say, "Hey, can you brake a car for me?" And the kid will do it. Which is say, "Hey, this person's gonna do that and that." This is why I have a dissatisfactory about resi cares, and why I want them shut down. They haven't been shut down yet, and the problem may get worse. And know why youth crimes happen? It's because of the government's poor decisions. The government should have invented resi cares in the first place. Maybe it's good in the short term, but in the long term, it's down low. And I think it's time for them to be shut down. Two is to have disabilities inside homes where they should be safe and sound, and other kids in common. Kids don't mix with disabilities as well as aged care, and that's why I want to keep them three separated from one another. They don't match. It's like they don't mix. There's three different sections to vulnerabilities, and that's why I have a big problem with resi cares. It's been a heart of our country, but its time is nearly over, and that is why I wanted to shut them down. But let's talk about youth crime going on within kids, and what's the problem with the government dealing with it, the people, what's going on, how's the government's doing about it, and all that stuff. And the government's been tackling ways. It started in Victoria, but it spread to Queensland. People will say they drive a car, seeing their friends and causing trouble. I think it could be two ways. One could be that. One is resi cares where the kids are overwhelmed, and I seen a video of one worker not feeding one kid the food, and this is how thefts occur. Where if they don't get food, they're gonna find ways to get food. They're not gonna get it out of a scrap bin or expired food, which would be very poor health. And that's another thing why I don't like resi cares is poor management of that decisions, and poor government decisions are overwhelming the system. And it shouldn't be wait till AI comes out and it could be a lot more worse. But we won't mention AI in this video, but we will be mentioning youth crimes. And yes, youth crimes has been a problem within Australia since 2023 and 4, and people are finding ways how to tackle the problem. From programs, courts on reoffending, changing laws, and news is tackling why. Where's our parents? And should the parents look after the kids? And as with citizens of Queensland asking, where's the parents? What? There's one man on the counter fair saying, I don't have the kid because he's in child protection. I cannot touch him. The government won't let me touch him. I like to talk to these people why my kid would be so much better 4 years ago if they weren't in their rental cares. And that's another way why I want to take sure it's out there. Young or old kids are teaching, who have criminal convictions, are teaching new kids to do these kinds of crimes. And this is where the disasters will come in, like kids will get arrested, go on bail, go out in the community and breach bail again, and it angers a lot of people. And I'm saying 2 incidences and where it involves ramming stolen cars, bashing teens over thefts, and I'm seeing protests of 10,000 people. It's getting to the breaking point of residents offending with security cameras, CCTVs, or taking things I've seen citizens arrests on, and it could be much worse. It may be something worse like hurting a teen, and it may result with a homeowner charged or convicted of manslaughter or attempted assault, or anything worse. Where I did mention why. I also forgot a few mentions about why I used to stealing cars and car keys. This is a common asset I'm hearing about been stealing. They mention about wallets, but cars are more common. Luxury cars, they target more of $1 million houses. No matter it's a $5,000 house, could be $100,000 to $1 million. They're looking for luxury cars. Or finding, I've seen ones with scanning devices without opening or breaking your car. And that's just why I don't use any newer cars. I've been having asking from people tell me, buy a newer car, Ethan, buy a tech car. I said no, because that's the problem with new cars is they're too tech, and it's easy to break-ins and get thefts, and too costly to maintain and too costly to cover. And this is why I stick to older cars. And the reason why I stick to this is the ways people may not understand why I keep older cars. One is, let's say I'm a youth right now. I want to look for a reliable car from escape from the police. And also, not just also that, there's 2 ways. I forgot to mention one where they're joyriding and using these cars for other crimes, and also aftermarket car parks, up to 5 times that. Selling those car parts for a lot more profits to do other crimes or keep to themselves for other things like buying pot, cigarettes, alcohol abuse, where the law say you know how to drink alcohol, but the registrations are poor on alcohol. You will get alcohol anywhere, where the governments have to address sooner. But let's talk about if I was a youth, I had to look for a car I can run from police for a long time with more fuel. That's what these kids are gonna think. And the kids are gonna say, we need a car that's reliable and it's new and it's not broken. They won't tend to all they'll steal rare cars, ratchet cars, four-wheel drives where they're more durable, but they're not mainly to target newer cars, older cars. Reason why they don't target older cars, if I was a youth, if I would have target $1,000 car or anything over 5,000 that has a bit of rust, you would have think twice before you go on the road escaping on a set of 5 or 20 police cars. And the reason why that would have happened is, let's say you travel 50 k's and there was a problem with your engine. Let's say it's an oil burner and it has problems with your rings and your carbon inside it, and it ends up blowing up in your face, or it catches fire. You got nowhere to go, and the police will draw their guns to your car, or ended up putting handcuffs on you. That's the biggest mistake you would attempt. But with luxury cars, they can get away what more longer and what more further distance, which is between 300 to 600 k's, given plenty of time to escape from police, even with police choppers in hands or drones, which is the good luxury for teens. And that's why I'm finding ways to take sure. No, and I've been through victims of theft before. Myself, I know when theft occurs, I know when it happens, and I know the police don't do jack crap, and I'll take sure it never happens again, and it includes cars. Not just, I will tap my car as well, but not with tech, well, with an older car. I'll use an older car no matter its age, as I don't care how it's rough, as long as I can drive it, as long as I don't have problems. And if I see kids looking at my car, they would have think twice. And that is why I don't drive newer cars. Not in my lifetime. Let's talk about the people getting angry with you. It's being a breaking point where you's on getting where you's are breaking ins, and there's been problems with people having problems with teens, and it's getting to the breaking point on where you's coming in and getting some I'm going to talk about more on this topic, but I'm going to take my real break. But I will do more of this. Stay tuned. I'll see you shortly. Welcome back, everyone. Yes, I mentioned about people in their houses are being threatened, breaking and entering, and so on, and why they're doing this, and what steps are taking to make sure it's not going to happen again. But I've been hearing about people talking about castle law, defending themselves with bats, crowbars, and so on to keep because they're getting overwhelmed in the system. There's been a lot of protests, but police are getting to some points on the people are getting. But people have said before, we trust the police to do their job. But it's not been much with police arresting youth. They've been bringing out task force, increasing the laws, bylaws. There's even talk about UN charters. The UN's involved, saying you can't drop a registration to kids and keep them behind bars. And there was a Liberal Party Premier of Queensland say, you can't tell us what to do. It's up to the Australian people of Queensland to decide if they want these kids behind bars. And we have our own laws and our own constitutions when it comes. UN's just a body on human rights. And if used wars, if any of them happen, but not in Ukraine, which is unfortunate. But we're not mentioning wars, but we do. It's been some topics where police are not doing their jobs. It's overwhelming. The laws say we can't touch kids under the age 12. There's been a few people mentioning they're getting frustrated, the system, the justice system, and it's getting to the point where people are taking things into their own hands. There's even something on media where 20 people or 30 people walk up a teenager's house up till he was on bail. One got arrested for trespassing, where the people don't care how the police won. It shouldn't have happened. And people are getting frustrated with the system where in a person's mind, no matter if they're parents or normal tradie, a paramedic or a retail worker, they'll be saying, look, nothing hasn't been done, and it's been firebugs, it's been cast multiple times, and we're getting fed up. So they've been saying, let's set up our house. It's gonna get involved into castle law between 1 to 10 years from now, and they're gonna have a heap of weapons where they may be charged or arrested for having a heap of weapons where it's maybe overwhelming. Victims may come stressful with the system and where they're going to fend their own houses and where they're going to take things in their own hands to the next level where it's going to be unfortunate, and something has to be done about it, and it needs to be some changes. But I did wanted to mention about that kind of affair in Queensland. I think it's happening everywhere where they're talking about, there's a dad talking about state governments, like the Queensland government is running a youth crime factory. Like they're juicing machines, they're building all these kids into robots and all that, like, hold on. And they're running like street rats. We're not talking about rats from the New York subway line. We're talking about this type of rats. What are they talking about? Four-legged rats. We're not talking about four-legged rats. We're talking about two-legged rats. And it doesn't make sense where we're talking about the youth crime. We're not talking about four-legged rats running around, big giant rats. It's not hilarious to say there's four-leggeds causing trouble, spiking in the enemies. It's already happening, but on a larger scale in Australia, and something has to be done to address the issue on youth crime. And I want to take sure why it shouldn't have happened, and I want to make my reports on the changes and all this stuff and why it shouldn't have happened, and what's the government's dealing with it. And I want to make my reports into that and why we should have the rights to defend our house. No matter if it's castle law in place, people will defend their homes, risking themselves to be charged by police defending. It may involve murder the young kid, which we don't want. We need to look in programs into kids, why it's happening, why the government's taking away their kids, and we need to look at programs to minimise that. We need to shut down residential cares self-defense weapons involved, and all that stuff. We need to look at ways we can protect ourselves, mitigate the risks, and so on. And not to put disability people inside youth homes. And don't mention about, I won't mention about you street rats. But I'm gonna do more with videos. I'm gonna do more with my logos. I'm gonna do more Instagram threads, Facebook. I have to do more with these stuff, and I'm gonna look more into the big things. I'm gonna do more at home because I love my home, and it is a big thing doing editing. I spent today 1 hour and 1 hour uploading the last video, and it's a big overwhelming job. And I just feel like I want to stay home and do things and sit outside the sun, what I wanted to do. But I wanted to take sure I support the people, and people do the return of supporting the people back. I want to take sure people look after their kids and care. This is my last video on children, and I'm gonna focus my next topic on 18s to 67s with disabilities, and I'm gonna mention my other topics in my short term. I'm gonna mention senior citizens in my next stage. But children are vulnerable. They have traumas. They've been through experiences. They're vulnerable to abuse. But childcare, there's been a few on childcare. I'm going to mention more on little topics. But it's been about children are the most vulnerable people, and it has to be ways to protect them. You may where's the kids' ID? But they're not. It's just bringing more crime. The government thinks kids are the problem. The kids have brains as an adult. They're not an adult, just like baby elephants. You're turning to an baby elephant where they don't have the ability to learn. And that's why the government say, hey, they're doing the wrong things. They know how to learn. But it's partly the government's fault and the poor communication and the decision making within their departments to have bigger problems in the long run. And I want to make sure it slows down, and to be slowed down where we shut down into 3 different places: disability, children in a special home, no resi home, and aged care. But how about for aged care facilities? Disability and kids, but kids and kids with disabilities don't mix, and it has to be 2 departments for that for under 18s, and that's something I wanted to fix. And I want to take sure I do anything to fix schools like support units, because kids, they don't understand about disabilities. They're only trained for compartmentalizations, but not under the NDIS. It's been changed a couple of years ago where kids can get NDIS over the age of 8, but not before. And I wanted to see more training into the compartmentalizations for inside support units, inside schools, and where teachers and head teachers are trained within the disability system, not just compartmentalization, but whole industry, where it should be mitigated, and it should be disability friendly and trained to meet its standards. And something I will do, and I will do that in the long run when it's the time. And I will talk to different MPs. I know I want to bring youth crime into the Queensland. When I meet these standards, I want to go all the way to New South Wales, Victoria, Queensland to meet the MPs, and I want to talk to them why kids are doing this, why we're running like you know what, and how to stop it instead of playing the blame game. And I wanted to talk to the MPs about shutting down resi cares. Is my last thing I will want to do. That's why the big topics that came in and why it shouldn't have happened. And I will do more with changes, but I'm going to do more on Instagram and Threads and my polling, and I'm going to do a polling on YouTube on should resident cares be shut down to keep crime rates down from kids, and that's going to be my answer when I get a chance. I want to say thank you for everyone, and I'm going to send to the other links that are below, and I'm going to start a new topic in the next couple of days. I'm going to take a break from this one. It's been, I thought I could do 7 days a week, but I miss some of the times. But I'm going to take a couple of days off and think about other things, to think about posting on Instagram, live feeding on Instagram, and so on. And I'm going to do more for stories, sharing what my plan's gonna be in the long run. I want to say thank you to all of you on here. If you feel any comments or ask questions, feel okay to do so, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay tuned. Peace out.